The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Are you trying to say that as of January 20th, that President Trump will be president?
That depends on what happens on Wednesday.
President Trump won this election. Do you think the election was stolen?
Absolutely. At this point, we do not know who has prevailed in the election.
This fraud was systemic, and I dare say it was effective.
This is a contested election.
President Trump won by a landslide.
Pull them this way!
The outcome of our presidential election was seized from the hands of voters.
We have to make sure that they look into what has been the theft of this presidential election.
Joe Biden lost and President Trump won.
Whatever happens to President Trump, he is still the elected president.
I would love to see this election overturned.
No one believes that this guy got 80 million votes. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right.
No ragtag group of liberal activists will be allowed to steal this election.
The president wasn't defeated by huge numbers. In fact, he may not have been defeated at all.
Over the next 10 days, we get to see the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of.
You've been made a fool of. That's the big lie. That is the big lie. And what's really sick and sad is that if Republicans, especially Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, hadn't signed on as senators, we never would have had a Wednesday. It never would have been. We wouldn't have had this big procedure. You would have had the leather boxes with the slates of electors certified by their respective states, sent to the Capitol, and the Capitol would have indicated that they received them, and that would have been that. It would have been just another day in democracy. But oh no. So let's just remember who did this. Let's never forget who actually propounded and promoted the big lie. I think everybody understands that all the 50 states have their own elections, all of them. There's no federal election. It's run by secretaries of state in all 50 states. It would have to have been such... There's no way. I mean, there's just no way that this was not a legitimate, free and fair election, that the Department of Justice, Bill Barr himself, said this was a free and fair election. There was absolutely nothing going on that was illegal or untoward or fraudulent in this election. And then here's another little layer of it. And it's really important that we explain this over and over again to people who still believe the big lie, who are still sycophantic and still, I'll just say, agitated. Some of them are super freaking violent, but the agitated ones need to understand that we had a special election right after the presidential election, and Democrats won Georgia. After that, Democrats won Georgia. So just wrap your brain around the fact that people were very excited to vote against Donald Trump, primarily because of his lack of response to the coronavirus, primarily because he lied so much and allowed for a mass casualty event to go on and on and on for 10, 11 months. That's why we were very excited to vote against this derelict in his duty president. And also, a good chunk of us were really livid at his violent rhetoric and his racism. Because America is a country, for the most part, of decent people, of people who want to move into the 21st century and want to see progress for their own families, for their own prospects, for their own prosperity, for their own health, for their own communities, for their own households. That is who we are. That is what we've been working really hard to do. Now, I get that people are saddened by the fact that they tried something that was, let's say, out of the ordinary by electing a reality TV star as a president of the United States. I get that you wanted to try something completely different because you were disgusted with the lack of progress in this country under a Democratic president with a Republican Congress who put up barriers to progress every step of the way. Mitch McConnell literally blocked Obama from doing everything and anything meaningful for you. That's a fact. But the lack of understanding of how this government actually works on the part of very frustrated people had led them to be so upset with the lack of care and the lack of response from their government that they decided to overthrow it. And I think that they have to take a deep dive and look at the idea of electing a reality TV star out of sheer desperation did not work. And most Americans understood that he was derelict in his duty on many fronts, that he was a liar, that he was racist, that he was lazy, that he was making money off the presidency, and he didn't give a whit about you. Now, I get the frustration. I really do. I am frustrated myself oftentimes by divided government and a Democratic president with a Republican Congress that can't get anything done. But I will tell you that Republican presidents with Republican Congresses do really bad things to you. They give our tax dollars, they raid the Treasury, and they redistribute the wealth to the very well-connected and the elite, to the donor class, to the corporate class. They are constantly redistributing our money. They deregulate the people who would do bad things to you, like big banks, so that they can then take your house. They do really bad things to you. And every time we have a Republican president, we either watch him resign in shame because he broke the law and, did criminal things, broke into the Democratic National Committee in order to cheat and give himself a leg up in an election, which, by the way, he didn't need to do because he won in a landslide. That would be Richard Nixon, right? Richard Nixon won a second term, unlike Donald Trump. He won a second term with 61% of the popular vote, and every state except what? Massachusetts, got like all the electoral votes, except for one state. And he had to resign because the power for them is wielded so poorly. They always wield it on behalf of their own selves and their own donor class. Okay? Democratic presidents are flawed. A lot of policies that are put forth by Democratic presidents don't go far enough. Like Barack Obama, he did a stimulus package when he had first entered office because W ran this economy off a cliff, literally. 850,000 people a month, every single month, were losing their jobs. Just for compare and contrast purposes, this week, almost 1 million people lost their jobs. Just this week. But W ran the economy off a cliff. Obama put a stimulus package on the floor. Not one single Republican voted for you. Not one single one. And then, because people were frustrated with the lack of care for their Great Depression, they voted in more Republicans. And that was pretty much the end of Barack Obama being able to do anything meaningful on the money front for ordinary working Americans. Learn that.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
President-elect Joe Biden says relief from the COVID crisis is in sight if Congress passes his nearly $2 trillion rescue package.
The crisis of deep human suffering is in plain sight, and there's no time to waste. We have to act, and we have to act now.
Biden unveiling his massive proposal during a Thursday evening address. It calls for boosting direct payments to Americans to $2,000 from $600, increasing the federal minimum wage to $15, and funding schools to help them reopen safely, all while extending unemployment insurance and expanding child tax credits and medical and family leave.
In this pandemic, in America, we cannot let people go hungry. We cannot let people get evicted. We cannot watch nurses, educators, and others lose their jobs. We so badly need them. We must act now and act decisively.
But many GOP lawmakers are likely to oppose the giant price tag and inclusion of many progressive proposals, such as that doubling of the minimum wage and federal aid to cash-strapped state and local governments.
Why?
One top House Republican saying special interests and liberals are cheering. The jobless in Main Street are left shaking their heads. Biden is also requesting $160 billion to jumpstart a national vaccine program. The Trump administration has been heavily criticized for its vaccine distribution strategy. Two senior Biden transition officials tell NBC News the Trump administration has barely invested in building a federal infrastructure to help states get the shots out.
The vaccine rollout in the United States has been a dismal failure thus far. We'll have to move heaven and earth to get more people vaccinated, to create more places for them to get vaccinated, to mobilize more medical teams to get shots in people's arms, to increase vaccine supply, and to get it out the door as fast as possible.
So half the battle, I think, is knowing that we have somebody who gives a crap. I don't know. The other half is going to be Congress. Okay? We have a very slim majority in the House, and there's a 50-50 split in the Senate, with Kamala Harris being a tiebreaker. But as you know, most legislation requires 60 votes, and it's very hard for me to believe that the Republicans in the Senate are willing to claw back the $1.2 trillion tax cuts for the wealthy and the corporate in order to pay for the things that we need to pay for right now to give relief to ordinary workaday Americans like me. Yes, I work every single day. That's what I do. And you probably do too. So we need relief. And of course you could pay for it by clawing back those tax cuts, but that is not going to enter into the Republicans' minds. They're just going to start, first of all, Trump's legacy is the largest deficit in the history of the United States. And it wasn't because he made new investments. It wasn't. It's because he just gave away the treasury. He just literally gave handouts. It's reverse socialism, obviously. You take the money that we pay in taxes and then you redistribute it to the very wealthy. That's socialism in reverse. I mean, there was never a more fascist socialist president than this one, as we can all see in the culmination of his administration, in the end of his administration, how it ended, why it's so violent, why it's so ugly, that it ended with the big lie, and that there's no one left, okay? Everybody is running like maggots. They're just running for a new source of food. Because his presidency is dead. It's over. It's done. Now, he wants a big military send-off. That's what he wants, a big military send-off. Let me talk to you about war and battles. Joe Biden's not going to win all of the battles, okay? But at least you know he's not going to lose interest. This president has checked out, and he checked out on you a long time ago. A long time ago. He plays golf all the time. Oh, by the way, no one will go to his golf courses anymore as far as the golf tours. PGA, the golf tour, they canceled. They will not play at the Trump property, okay? The British Open, They will not play in Scotland at Turnberry. They've canceled. He has literally managed to just fritter away what is possible in a post-presidency financially, right? You can write a book, you can do speeches, nobody wants to come within spitting distance of Donald Trump and do business with him. In fact, even the Koch brothers, the freaking Koch brothers, are holding off any donations to the Republican Party because they want to see whether or not they will denounce this kind of white supremacy and violence, this kind of terrorism against the United States. Now, do you think that that's a moral call? I don't. I think what they understand is that the entire world is putting us on the list of countries that are in flux, that are fragile, that are at the breaking point, and not to invest in America right now. I was joking the other day. I said, if we were a foreign country, the State Department would issue a no travel warning, except we live here. Well, that's what's happening. The entire world of business is saying, America is on the verge of something horrible. Don't put your money there. It's not safe. That is what he's done. Now, Biden announced a very ambitious plan yesterday that we can pay for by clawing back these tax cuts to the very wealthy and leaving the middle class, the little smidge we got, in place. He could pay for everything that he wants to do that way. That way. But do you really think Republicans are going to vote when Mitch McConnell said it's a waste of money to invest in us? Mitch McConnell said it's a waste of money. He sees no way that Americans need this relief. There's no way that we need this money. I don't think so. And by the way, here's another story that is really disgusting. Seems like our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mr. Azar, lied through his rear end. Okay, just lied and lied about the amount of vaccine that was available. There's no more vaccine available. And you know what the companies are saying, the Moderna and the Pfizer's? They're saying only 75% of what's available has been ordered. But the shelves are empty, everybody. The shelves are empty. What? Having Donald Trump in charge of distributing our life-saving vaccines it's like sending your letters through the Pony Express. I mean, he never cared. He wants to thin the herd. I think he liked who was dying. I think he was okay with who was dying. But I will tell you this, if he was in charge of the D-Day invasion, he would have attacked the wrong beach. He would have attacked Palm Beach. That's how checked out this man is.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. As I have said, the incursion of the U.S. Capitol struck at the very heart of our republic. We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You are right. You better believe you got more. I unequivocally condemn the violence. If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Making America great again has always been about defending the rule of law.
The president, sources say, initially rebuffed bringing in the National Guard.
We were repeatedly being told by the National Guard at the national level that we did not have authorization.
Supporting the men and women of law enforcement.
The Capitol Police officer died of injuries from the attack.
A second U.S. Capitol Police officer who responded to the Capitol riots last week has died.
We have seen too many riots, too many mobs, too many acts of intimidation.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Today I am calling on all Americans to overcome the passions of the moment and join together as one American people. All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing.
That's all that's really left to do is convict Donald Trump. And, we got to keep on plowing forward. Pam in Maryland.
Hi, Randy. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just called because I wanted to say I feel like you're brushing all of us that did vote for President Trump with a broad brush. I know that and accept that Vice President Biden will be my new president.
Thank God.
And I am totally against and appalled about what happened down in Washington D.C. and I'm upset with Republicans as well as I'm kind of upset with Washington altogether.
So
right
why do you think it happened?
I think that one thing, I think there are always bad people that show up at these kinds of things. They've done it to harm other types of people that go and walk and protest. There's people there sometimes that are just there to say.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Well, not at at the Capitol. No, I've seen that the Black Lives Matter was horrifying. That terrified me when they tore up the police.
Well, they
because
didn't.
They took out a whole police station.
But that was
people were shot, killed, and attacked daily.
Wait a second.
Actually, for months.
Okay.
For months.
All right. My turn.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I've had several strokes, and it takes me to get my mind together to spit it out.
Okay.
Thank you, Randy.
I respect that. The burning of the police department in Washington, D.C. was done by this same crowd. Okay? That's number one. The Boogaloo Boys are the ones that killed 2 police officers infiltrating the Black Lives Matter protests. Black Lives Matter protests were peaceful. They were in Lafayette Square Park, and they were attacked by Donald Trump's thugs, by Bill Barr's thugs, okay? They were set upon, and they were peaceful. So the infiltration of the Black Lives Matter protest is well reported, well documented. The killing of the 2 police officers was done by a Boogaloo boy. He killed 2 police officers days apart, okay? So they are the violent ones. The Black Lives Matter protesters, had they, when they were in Washington, done anything remotely like this, it would have been a bloodbath, and you and I both know it. They never would have been on the Capitol steps. They never would have been able to beat police officers. The first time any Black Lives Matter protester ever pepper sprayed, bear sprayed, hit somebody with a flagpole, a hockey stick, or a crutch that was wearing a police uniform, everyone in that crowd would be dead. And you know that.
What I know, I saw today on the news that these are the people that overtook the Black Lives Matter as well, that overtook this crowd.
No, you didn't see that in a newspaper.
Not all of them.
No, what you saw was propaganda from the conspiracy media. What you saw last night was a guy who was rejected by Black Lives Matter as being...
I didn't see it last night. It was something that just came up on C-SPAN.
On C-SPAN. Oh, a caller. Yeah, because they saw it last night. So what that is a story. And if you go to randyrhodes.com and just click on the homework there, you'll see the article that will answer your question who this guy is, okay? Who he was and how he was rejected by Black Lives Matter as being a violent person, somebody they did not trust. He called himself, he called himself a Black Lives Matter protester. He was not. And everybody understood that he was not, and that he was dangerous, and that he was, not to be included. The guy's from Utah, and everyone knew about him, okay? And so if you want to read like who he is and how they've latched on to this one human being, which I knew was going to happen when I saw Laura Ingraham tweet it out last night. So I thought to go and put it in the homework today so that that lie could be squashed right away. But what you have here are white supremacists who believe Donald Trump is a racist, along with them supporting him. And that's what happened.
Well,
It doesn't matter. I know what you're going to say to me.
I know what you're saying.
You're going to tell me Donald Trump's not a racist.
I don't believe he's a racist.
Okay,
no, I don't.
He's a birther.
And I don't want you to think I'm a racist.
I don't think you're a racist. He has shown me he's a racist. He's a birther. And you know what's even more important? Here's what's really important, Pam. Racists believe he's racist.
Well, I'll look at whatever it is you're telling me to look at because I like to be informed.
That's great. I appreciate it. Just go look it up. It says who is this guy, and you click on it, and you'll see that this guy was rejected as being anybody early, like last year, as being anybody that they should label as being with Black Lives Matter, that they were putting out the alarm saying this guy is violent, this guy is crazy, this guy, leave him out of it, he's not part of us. Now, he got arrested because he was at the Capitol screaming, burn this crap down, stuff I can't even say. But way prior to his showing up at this this insurrection, this attempt at overthrowing our government, people understood who he was and sought to distance themselves from him, like a year ago or more. They don't tell you that, though. They don't tell you that. They show you some old video of him in Salt Lake City standing on a podium declaring himself Black Lives Matter. Well, he was rejected as being part of a justice movement, a racial justice movement by white people, by black people, by all peaceful protesters. So that's just another big lie they're trying to peddle. It was Antifa. It was the Black Lives Matter. They would all be dead and you know it.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The nature of the threat is that they are terrorists, however, and I think that is the key thing that we have to understand. A lot of these people that were involved in the attack of January 6th were on the FBI watch list.
Right.
These are white supremacists. These are Nazi groups. These are QAnon conspiratorial groups. These are essentially terrorists. And I've dealt with terrorists, foreign and domestic. And the problem is they're not interested in any kind of peaceful protest. They're interested in chaos and creating disruption. And for that reason, I think they have to be dealt with, not just as individuals seeking to conduct protests, but individuals seeking to undermine our democracy.
And those are the Trump supporters. Not all of them, but those are Trump supporters. Everyone there was supporting Donald Trump's big lie, that the election was stolen. Everyone there was supporting Donald Trump, and they were white supremacists. They are Boogaloo Boys. They are Three Percenters. They are Oath Keepers. They are they're white supremacists. There, some of them were Nazis. Some of that, and the only thing that matters is that they think that Donald Trump is a racist. They think Donald Trump is anti-Semitic. They think Donald Trump is for their point of view. That's what matters. If racists think you're racist and you find yourself supporting that person, my question to you is, when do you walk away? When do you just walk away and say, that was a mistake? I said at the beginning of the show, I understand a lot of people's frustration with, the inequality in this country, with the lack of a $15 minimum wage, with the lack of health care, with the lack of everything, services and excellent public education and child care and all the burdens that are placed on American families. I'm one of them. And so some people were willing to take a chance on a racist agitator, a racist con man demagogue, a man who said that if he lost in 2016, it was because it was rigged. Didn't have to play that card because he didn't lose, but then plays it now and look who shows up. Okay, the racists, the anti-Semites, the Nazi, the Stormfronters, the Three Percenters, the Oath Keepers, the Boogaloo Boys, the Proud Boys, all these lunatics, they believe Donald Trump is their guy. And if you thought Donald Trump was your guy, but now you've seen this, then my question for you is, when do you walk away? When do you say, I can't be part of this, because obviously the racists think he's racist? And that's all you need to know. Now, we could go through the whole list of his racist exclamations, okay? Look at my African American, okay? He was the original birther. Even after the Central Park Five were shown to be innocent through DNA evidence and had been locked up because of guys like Donald Trump being powerful in New York, he said they still did it, even though the DNA showed that they didn't do it. He started the whole campaign by calling an entire country's people rapists and murderers. He insinuated that there were caravans of terrorists at the border. He did the most Nazi thing I ever saw in America ever. He separated women and children, nursing babies from their mother. He literally, after a hurricane, a massive Category 4 or 5 hurricane, Hurricane Maria, slammed into Puerto Rico, he went there and he told them their country was a piece of dung anyway and threw paper towels at them. He tried a Muslim ban, which was unconstitutional, several times. He tells Proud Boys who are racist to stand back and stand by. He won't denounce white supremacy. He says there's good people on both sides. Then, the guy has this MO. Here's what Trump does. He says the really racist, ugly, divisive thing, starts the fire. Then he throws gas on the fire. Then he sits back and watches everything burn. And then when the firefighters rush in, he rushes in with a thimbleful of water as proof that he was part of the solution. Sorry, the racists think he's racist. That's all that matters. Nicholas in San Cristobal, Mexico.
Randy.
See?
Wow, how do you do it? I do not, and God bless your memory. You've got it all down so tight. Thank you for reminding us all every step of the way through the nastiness of it all. Mm-hmm. Listen, a quickie. Am I getting a little overly optimistic here? Now that we're going to have Bernie as head of the Budget Committee and Sherrod Brown, no less, as head of the Banking and Housing Committee? Am I getting a little too crazy here?
Well, look, we got a razor-thin majority in the House, right? So,
yeah,
and we have a 50-50 Senate with Kamala Harris being a tiebreaker. But we all know that most legislation takes 60 votes. However, Bernie is a senator who knows the Senate parliamentary rules. And he's very, very smart, and he's very much on and he's very much on the side of people who work to make their money.
Well, what's it called? The reconciliation thing, right?
Exactly. There is a procedure in the Senate on the budget that provides for reconciliation, meaning you only need 50 votes. And
yeah, but that's why I'm getting a little optimistic here.
Right, and it's something to actually use legitimately to pass relief packages. So I think help is on the way. I really think that
that's what I think.
I think this package that Biden laid out, I think Biden has this earthly desire to, bring people together and get the votes from some Republicans who, represent districts that are especially hurting, but have Republican senators. I think he really wants to try that. However, if it fails, he doesn't diminish the fact that people still need help. That people still need a check. They still need enhanced unemployment. They still need, health care. They still need, rent forgiveness or rental assistance. They still need these things. So, yes, in the end, there is a reconciliation process that would only require 50 votes. And sure, we could pass it like that.
And he's the one who gets to decide to use that, right?
Yes.
As far as I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's his call.
Right. So there you have it.
So,
I really believe help is on the way. I really, really do. I will tell you.
We not only have an economic imperative to act now, I believe we have a moral obligation. In this pandemic, in America. We cannot let people go hungry. We cannot let people get evicted. We cannot watch nurses, educators, and others lose their jobs. We so badly need them. We must act now and act decisively. My fellow Americans, the decisions we make in the next few weeks and months are going to determine whether we thrive in a way that benefits all Americans, or that we stay stuck in a place where those at the top do great, while economic growth for most everyone else is just a spectator sport.
Exactly. Exactly. So here's a little bit of what's in the package.
The very health of our nation is at stake. Our rescue plan also includes immediate relief to Americans hardest hit and most in need. We will finish the job of getting a total of $2,000 in cash relief to people who need it the most. The $600 already appropriated is simply not enough. We just have to choose between paying rent and putting food on the table. Even for those who've kept their jobs, these checks are really important. You see, if you're an American worker making $40,000 a year with less than $400 in savings, maybe you've lost hours, or maybe you're doing fewer shifts, driving a truck or caring for the kids or the elderly. You're out there putting your life on the line to work during this pandemic and worried every week that you'll get sick, lose your job, or worse.
There's a lot in this package, and it's all good stuff. It's stuff that's needed. And yes, we could pay for it by clawing back those enormous benefits that went to the very, very tippy top of our economic, life. He's right. Getting what you need to feed your children, or to keep a roof over your head, or to pay your car payment, or to pay your rent, or to meet your obligations on water and heating and all that. That has become the most severe struggle in the richest country in the world. What a shame. Or as we like to say, what a shanda. That means it's a sin in Hebrew. And it is a sin. And that's because Republicans only care about the donor class. They only care about the people who can give them money, who can lobby them, who can have fundraisers for them. And they have fundraisers every day from morning till night. I don't think you understand how severe the money issue is. One good thing, the moneyed elite are withholding their money from the Republican Party. Let's see if Mitch McConnell understands what time it is. Let's see if he does.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
All right. Joe Biden is laying out his 5-point COVID plan to speed up the vaccination of our population. So I'm going to listen in for a minute here with you.
By the federal government and the scientific community throughout our history. We also see that disinformation campaigns are already underway to further undermine trust in the vaccines. Our administration will launch a massive public education campaign to rebuild that trust. We'll help people understand what science tells us, that the vaccines help reduce the risk of COVID infections and can better safeguard our health and the health of our families and our communities. It's a critical piece to account for a tragic reality of the disproportionate impact this virus has had on Black, Latinos, and Native American people who are being infected about 4 times the rate of white Americans and dying at nearly 3 times the rate of white Americans. This is unacceptable. It's unconscionable. Equity is central to our COVID response. And the Vice President and I commit to making sure communities of color and rural neighborhoods, those living with disabilities and seniors, are not left behind in our vaccination plans. Look, our plan is as clear as it is bold. Get more people vaccinated for free. create more places for them to get vaccinated, mobilize more medical teams to get the shots in people's arms, increase supply and get it out the door as soon as possible. This will be one of the most challenging operational efforts ever undertaken by our country. But you have my word that we will manage the hell out of this operation. Yeah. But as I said last night, we need funding from Congress to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm optimistic. I'm convinced the American people are ready to spare no effort and no expense to get this done. All these steps will take some time. It may take many months to get where we need to be. There will be stumbles. And yes, I know so much has already been asked of you. And when we're sworn in next week, we're going to ask you to keep the faith and keep following what we know works. One of our 100-day challenges is to mask up everyone. The day we're inaugurated, I'm going to ask you to mask up for the next 100 days. This is not a political issue. And I will issue an executive order to require masks where I have the authority to do that. For federal workers, and federal property, on interstate travel, like trains and planes. We'll also be working with mayors and governors in red states and blue states and ask them to require masking up in their cities and their states. Look, I hope we now know this is not a political issue. This is about saving lives. I know it's become a partisan issue, but what a stupid, stupid thing for it to happen. This is a patriotic act. We're asking you. We're in a war with this virus. And experts saying have shown that wearing a mask from now until April will save as many as 50,000 lives. Quite frankly, it was shocking to see members of the Congress, while the Capitol was under siege by a deadly mob of thugs, refused to wear a mask while they were in secure locations. I'm so proud of my congresswoman right here in the state of Delaware, Lisa Brunt Rochester, trying to hand out masks while people are lying on the floor, huddled up, and a Republican colleagues refusing to put them on. What the hell's the matter with them?
Seriously, dude.
It's time to grow up.
Yeah.
Result? At least 4 members of Congress to date, including a cancer survivor, now have COVID-19 who were in those rooms. For God's sake, wear a mask, if not for yourself, for your loved ones, for your country. These are real matters of life and death. We need you to stick with hand washing, social distancing, and avoid indoor gatherings with people outside your own household. We'll be a partner to the states and cities, so where things are working, we'll help do more of the good work. And when things can improve, we'll bring more resources to bear to get folks tested and vaccinated. I promise you, we're going to work closely with nonprofits and with the private sector, who we know all want to partner with us in this effort. The more people we vaccinate and the faster we do it, the sooner we can put this pandemic behind us. And the sooner we can build our economy back better and get back to our lives and to our loved ones. As we're seeing during this pandemic, we can't solve our problems as a divided nation. The only way we come through this is if we come through together as Americans, fellow Americans, and as the United States of America. Vice President-elect Harris and I ran on that vision. And starting at noon on Wednesday, that's exactly how we're going to govern. And ask for your help. God bless you all and keep you safe. And may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very excited about having a president that gives a damn, who's capable and understands the situation in which we find ourselves. So only 75% of the available vaccine has even been ordered by the Trump administration. 31,000 doses are currently available. Only 12,000 have been administered. What the F? Okay, I really do believe that Donald Trump was very pleased with who was dying of COVID, with who was getting infected with COVID. I don't think he gives a damn about anybody over the age of 65. I just don't, even though he's one of them, you say. And I just don't think he cares about the fact that black people, Latino people, frontline workers, people who, do service industry work are the ones that are getting infected most often. And they are the ones who live in some of the most, I don't know, how do you say, sparse areas for medical care. Sparse, let's just call it that. Whether it's a city or a rural community. He has actually presided over more rural hospitals closing than anybody else. Listen, he's got, as he leaves, I thought yesterday might be the last poll that we saw. No. There's still more polling being done. Pew Research today said that Donald Trump will be leaving office with a 29% approval rating. A 29% approval rating. Now, I've always said to you there'll be 1/3 of this country, fully 1/3 of this country, who are people who subscribe to white supremacist philosophies. And they'll always be with us. They've been with us forever. Problem is, Donald Trump encouraged them to burrow into law enforcement, to burrow into judicial positions. Listen, I'm going to tell you, dozens of people in that mob were on a terrorist watch list. And we don't use the terrorist watch list to watch any terrorists. That's the sick thing about this country, okay? Anyway, he's got a 29% approval rating. He's got 76% of the American people saying he did poorly as president. 76%. He did poorly. However, only 20% of those are Republicans.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So what's in the rescue package? Bigger stimulus checks, $1,400. More aid for the unemployed, the hungry, and people facing eviction. Additional support for small business, money for schools, state and local aid, and key here, more money for testing. There's a $15 an hour minimum wage to tackle income inequality. Oh!
Let's make sure our caregivers, mostly women of color, immigrants, have the same pay and dignity that they deserve.
A lot of work ahead for the Biden administration. America is in a deep jobs hole. 140,000 jobs were lost in December, the first net job loss since April. The economy still down 9.8 million jobs since February. That's not a V there, folks. That is not a V at all. When you dig deeper into the numbers, women accounted for all the job losses in the month, losing 156,000 net jobs, while men gained 16,000. The coronavirus recession, really a she-session here, hurting women and minority women the most, and that is something the Biden team keenly aware of.
Jesus, God, women, we're getting, I mean, the misogyny, the actual cheering for, the demise of black people, Latino people, frontline workers, women, it's just the lack of care for Americans is just, it's astronomical. It's just so amazing. All right, so here's what is in the package, okay? I will just briefly run through it with you, okay? The National Vaccination Program, which is what this press conference was about today. It's $20 billion toward a vaccination program. It is in partnership with states and localities and tribes and territories. Okay, it's propping up vaccination centers. Some of you are lucky enough to live in states that have mega centers where people can go and get vaccinated, just one after the other, and then you sit for 15 minutes. They make sure you don't get anaphylaxis, which is, an allergic reaction, and then you can go on your way. okay? He wants to do not just mega centers in places that could support a mega center, but he wants to do mobile vaccination units to go into remote and rural areas. He wants to expand testing, $50 billion to expand testing, which we never, ever, ever got. To this day, people sit in lines for hours and hours. I don't know how seniors have managed to do this, except, maybe they're retired, but they always have to pee. Are they all wearing diapers? They're pretty now, some of the diapers. But honestly, how are they sitting in automobiles for hours and hours? They want to cover the purchase of rapid tests so that we can have them, like pregnancy tests in your own home. They want to expand lab capacity and help schools and local governments with testing, okay? There's also, in this package, emergency paid leave. So God forbid you do get sick and you need to take leave so that you don't infect your fellow employees or your fellow, colleagues or whatever it is. It's paid leave for millions of Americans. Paid sick leave, paid family leave, paid medical leave for parents who are juggling the responsibilities of childcare. School funding. $130 billion is in here to help schools reopen. You can reduce class sizes, have little, remote pods. You can modify the spaces so that you can do social distancing. You can improve the ventilation systems, redo the HVAC in schools and, provide personal protective equipment for teachers. You can he wants to do $35 billion in funding for colleges, for public colleges, including historically black colleges, community colleges. And there's money in here for 100,000 public health care workers to carry out the vaccination and the contact tracing. It also will tackle some of the disparities in actually getting to health care, particularly in communities of color that have been disproportionately affected by COVID because of the lack of health care in their rural areas, in their city area, in their communities, tribal lands, things like that. So there's funding for health services in underserved populations. And yes, that does include tribal lands. Now, then there's the money part, the direct relief for us, okay? There are stimulus checks. Instead of the $600, they want to do another $1,400 check to bring you up to the $2,000 that we should have had all along. The Republicans have consistently opposed $2,000 payments. They say larger payments is a waste of money. It's a waste of money, everybody. Expanded unemployment benefits, okay? They want to put another $400 a week into the enhanced unemployment benefit so that the people who are getting their state unemployment get an enhanced unemployment check with $400 in addition to the state, right? Also, assistance for people who have exhausted their unemployment benefits. And also those who don't typically qualify, like self-employed. Hello, self-employed people, gig workers, Uber drivers, etc., right? There's eviction protection, okay? It extends eviction protection, not just for the measly 30 days that we got in Mitch McConnell's little deal, but till the end of September, through the summer, so that people can get vaccinated before they have to go back to work. $25 billion in rental assistance on top of the $25 billion that was passed in Congress. Also, $5 billion for home energy and water payments. $5 billion in emergency assistance to find housing for people who are homeless, experiencing homelessness in the middle of a pandemic. That must be really the most amazingly psychological. It must be just trauma. I've slept in my car, when I was younger. I was really poor and all that, and we've gone through my story, but I can't imagine doing it in the middle of a pandemic. Oh my God. Okay. And then the hunger crisis, like 1 in 5 families can't feed their kids. 1 in 5 kids in this country are going without food regularly. So it's a 15% increase in SNAP benefits and $3 billion in special supplemental nutrition programs for women, infants, and children. That's called WIC. Also a $15 an hour minimum wage and an expanded child tax credit. So a tax credit for children in poor and middle class households, fully refundable for the year, increases to $3,000 per child, $3,600 for a child under the age of 6, and 17-year-olds qualify for the year because they're cutting kids off at 17. Don't ask me why. $15 billion for small businesses in grants, don't have to be paid back, and $35 billion for loans for small businesses. Aid to the cities and the localities, right, to distribute the vaccine, to increase the testing, to reopen their schools for their frontline workers, public hospitals, firefighters, police officers, which the Republicans are very happy to defund, sanitation workers, etc., school budgets, all that, help for the transit systems, and a pandemic response of $20 billion to support tribal governments so they could buy PPE and get vaccinated.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
This is just such a critically important moment to aggressively and efficiently attack the dual challenges that have plagued this country for far too long. And of course, I'm talking about the pandemic and the economic crisis that it has engendered. Now, this plan, this American Rescue Plan that the president-elect talked about tonight, it can control the virus, produce and distribute adequate amounts of the vaccine, open up our schools, provide relief from hunger and homelessness, get help to struggling businesses, and cut child poverty in half. And that's just the first step the president-elect talked about tonight, the rescue step. It sets up a later package to ensure a racially inclusive, equitable, and environmentally sustainable recovery. So this is the first step of a two-step strategy.
Jared Bernstein, everybody. So every economist, including Moody's and, Austin Goolsbee, my, old crush. I don't crush on him as much. He really does love his wife. He has told me that. And he appeared on Fox News entirely too much. But Austin Goolsbee is an economist, and, these people have all said, you need to spend money right now to get out of this pandemic. You need to spend money right now to get out of this economic crash, this depression. 8 million people through no fault of their own have been thrown into poverty. 1 million people filed for unemployment last week. The president is leaving with less jobs than he inherited. He screwed this country thoroughly. He literally checked out. He's abandoned the American people. He did it when COVID came, okay? He told Bob Woodward, I know this is bad and blah, but I want to downplay it because he wanted to keep on riding Obama's economy, his economic coattails. And COVID is what the president is there for. Obama used to say that if it ends up on the president's desk, that's because it's a huge unsolved problem. Nothing except for huge unsolved problems ends up on the Resolute desk. Okay? And that's what the president is there for. That is why we have a chief executive. And Trump just checked out. He literally just checked out, and he decided lying is the best course of action. And he told you it would just magically disappear. He told you it would go away. He told you it's only 15 people. Then he decided to make it a racist virus by, China. It's a Chinese virus. Once it's here, it's an American virus, okay? Just for those of you who are wondering. No, once it's here and killing Americans, it's an American virus that's killing American people, and it needs an American solution. And he just checked out. It was too difficult. Went golfing. Told you to take hydroxychloroquine. You had a guy who literally drank fish food and died because he saw chloroquine in the ingredients. Thank you, Brett. Oh, here we have Joe Biden's 4-page vaccination plan. Okay, so there's a simple plan here that listen to science, ensure public health decisions are informed by public health professionals. There's an idea. Promote trust and transparency and common purpose and accountability, and ensure all Americans have access to free testing. Expand the kind of testing people need. Next generation testing, home tests, instant tests, scaling up testing. A war production board for COVID. A testing board like Roosevelt had used the Defense Production Act to increase supplies of syringes and alcohol swabs, whatever, and people to administer. It's common sense, but we didn't have anybody in charge of anything. That is why America looks the way it does. This presidency has left us sicker, weaker, and poorer than we were before this presidency. So if you think people out there were frustrated before, frustrated enough to vote for a racist piece of reality TV out of fandom, wait till you see how frustrated they are now, with a big lie on top of it that their dear leader actually was ripped off. Something bad happened to. Why is this? We are dying. We are getting sick. People have long haul COVID. Some people, they have COVID. They're asymptomatic. I get it. But we never know. Like, each person is so different. We never know, like, how it's going to, hit somebody, or whether or not they can survive it. And if they do they get blood clots later? All these things. Whatever, okay? We have a president who checked out and abandoned us in the middle of something that was so unsolvable that it ended up on the president's desk, and he decided it's too complicated. He didn't want to do it. He doesn't read anything. He doesn't, believe science or understand it, so therefore he doesn't bother with it. Now we have a president who gives a damn. Now we have a president who understands briefings. Now we have a president who understands science. We got people who have dealt with things like H1N1. We have people who have dealt with things like Ebola that are part of the president's cabinet now, okay? And we're going to come out of this, but until we do, the big lie is still being told. And as much as we want Trump to be arrested and locked up and blah, 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 it takes time. It takes time. And he's literally going to communicate by hook or crook with these people. Now, this idea that he's been muzzled or silenced, that he can't communicate with people, I am not aware of anybody turning down a Trump interview or not inviting Trump on the TV. Because I really do think Newsmax, and I really do think OANN, and I really do think Fox News, all the conspiracy channels, including, the real lunatic fringy ones, would allow him on the show to say whatever the F he wants. So this idea that, it's cancel culture and he has no way to speak, that's a lie too. Private companies have a right to say, if you don't wear the McDonald's uniform, you don't come to work. They also have a right to say that if you threaten violence in our space, we kick you out of our space. That's the free market, everybody. That's what, I thought Republicans were all about it. And with regard to elections, each state has its own election, right? That's states' rights. I thought they were all about that. And as far as the Blue Lives Matter thing, they've already killed 4 cops, right? They've killed 2 at the protest, the insurrection, the overthrow of our government attack. And the Boogaloo Boys have killed 2 law enforcement officers already. What the Don't ever tell me you're pro-life with the COVID thing. And don't ever tell me you're all about the police, because I heard you. I heard you red hat freaks screaming, "We're done with you," to the police officers, and then pick up a bottle of bear spray and spray them. And if Black Lives Matter had tried anything like that, even though they were being attacked for being peaceful in Lafayette Square Park with pepper spray and pepper balls and flashbangs and horses and riders of horses and unmarked little green men they'd all be dead. Know that.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to News 4 Today.
The president is set to take the stage at 11 a.m. this morning.
This election was stolen. Stolen. Fraud.
And corrupt.
We're going to the Capitol to make your voices heard.
A Senate who don't give two shits about the people. We're coming in after them. This is our building.
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
All these politicians, we are not stopping until we take our country back.
When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules.
Do I think Biden will be in office? No, I do not, because these people will not allow it to happen. We will come together and crush tyranny.
You will have an illegitimate president. We will stop the steal.
Let that sink in, okay? That none of that is true. These people are, first of all, can I just say it's not your house? It's not your house. Because that would make it mine too, and I don't want it trashed. So how could it just belong to you? That's number one. Number two, the way our government works is you elect somebody to go to that house on your behalf. It's not yours. It's the representative's house. You vote for them, they go. You don't have an office there. They do. You don't like who you sent? Every 2 years you can send somebody else. Nothing was stolen from you. There is no tyranny in this country. We have had a neglectful, derelict president for 4 years, as evidenced by the unbelievable amount of death, carnage, if you will, in this country on his watch. The unbelievable amount of poverty in this country on his watch. An increase in poverty, less health insurance, less opportunity, less ability to work, less health, less security. Everything he has touched has died. Don't you understand? The only thing he's very good at is killing democracy and people being able to figure their way out of a paper bag. That's it. He's very good at propaganda. He's very good at lying. And he's very good at destroying democracy. A+ for destroying democracy, or at least the attempt. Rob in Arizona.
Hi, Randi. Hey, we cannot unite a divided country until the Republicans stop lying. And I'm going to repeat that. We cannot unite a divided country until the Republicans stop lying. I wish somebody would have taken 30 seconds and repeated that phrase for 30 seconds on the floor during the impeachment hearings, just to rub that in, because this is what this is about. It's their lies. People have died over their lies this time. Well, they've died before, but this time in particular. And we got to stop putting up with their lies and calling it out. And those people still supporting them need to be shouted down in public. Anytime they open their mouths, they need to be, just you lie. Just start chanting, you lie, as soon as they open their mouths.
Well, I get what you feel, but the truth is accountability is what's needed here. There needs to be a trial in the Senate for things he did while he was president. The idea that, a president can do whatever he wants in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks of a presidency because you can't have a trial for criminal activity in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the presidency would mean that every president who was trying to do something really bad would do it in the last 2 weeks of their presidency because there would be no way to. So that makes no sense. So we need to have So we need to have a trial, and in that trial, witnesses must come forward, and the witnesses must say what they saw him doing at the White House while the insurrection, while the terrorists were literally trying to overthrow the government, because the witnesses will tell you he was watching television and he liked it. He was happy with it. He was rooting for them to overthrow democracy. You'll also hear evidence that there was no stolen election. You'll also hear evidence from if we had to speak to every single Secretary of State in this country, Republican, Democrat, whatever, to come and say, was your election stolen? Was there any fraud in your election? Then we have to do that. Because
I absolutely agree with that.
It's the only way to heal this nation. Truth is the salve. It's the ointment. Otherwise, as I keep on telling you, what we got here on our hands is an oozy pussy gravy sore that needs to be cleansed or it will infect the entire body. And the only way to cleanse it is to have the truth told under oath in front of TV cameras, because listen, here's the thing. Trials, for the most part, since OJ, that was the only one where Ito allowed cameras in the courtroom that did not, they said, oh, we'll never do that again. That was a mistake. You should always have cameras in the courtroom. We should be able to watch everything in this country that has to do with administering justice or getting the truth, okay? You could have entire channels devoted to, real trials that anybody could watch anytime. But this trial, of course, will be on the television because it's the Senate that will be having the trial. John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, will preside. And witnesses will be called, they will be sworn, and we will get the information to the people on the TV. That needs to happen. And
I hope they get Trump on the stand. I really hope they can get him on the stand.
No, he won't testify. He'll either claim the fifth or he'll say he's immune, and that'll be a whole big battle to get him to testify. He doesn't have to incriminate himself, as you know. It's just not part of any procedure that we have in this country. You can if you want to. Maybe he'll be stupid enough to do it. But, you can make Rudy Giuliani testify. You can, Gosar can testify. Andy Biggs in the House can testify. I'm sorry. But this trial will be on TV because it will happen in the Senate. And the Senate is a body of politics, okay? It is. But this is a political crime. What better place for it? Because that's what they're going to say now. Well, this is all politics. Well, the president actually inciting an insurrection in this country, actually telling people to overthrow their own government as he's the leader of that government, that is a political crime. That is a high political crime. It's also a criminal crime. It's also, sedition, treason. Now, if these people that have been arrested, some of them are just so vile. I got so many videos. I don't show them. Because they're just so ugly. They're ugly. I have the entire video of this girl who is now being made a martyr by the white supremacists. A retired Air Force girl. This killed me. Okay? And then you have a retired lieutenant colonel whose ex-wife turned him in. Oh, man. His ex-wife. She said that's a very good picture of him. Brock. You know who I'm talking about. Lieutenant Colonel Brock. He was the guy in the Senate with the helmet on. Yeah. And the zip ties. He said he was trying to, arrest and assassinate people. Political people. It is a political crime, what happened here. Okay? But it's also a criminal crime. Now, if those people are facing 20 years for seditious conspiracy, because it's 20 years is what they'd be looking at, I do believe that they're going to do exactly what Arizona Shaman Man is doing. They're going to blame Trump. They are. They're going to blame him. They're going to say they believed him. They're going to say that they had the right to rely, which is a very important legal theory, the right to rely on the president of the United States. I'll just play a little clip. This is last night. Okay, I pulled this just for this moment, actually. Here is the lawyer for the QAnon shaman. The lawyer's name is Al Watkins, okay? Al Watkins is making the case that the shaman guy, the guy with the horns on his head, had a right to be there because he was invited by the president.
I want to tell you, it's really important. We should stop calling people fools because we have a large percentage of our population who spent a great deal of time in their lives hanging on every word of President Trump. My client, it did not break into the Capitol. My client had the doors to the Capitol held for him by Capitol Police. My client did not shroud his face in secrecy. He wasn't wearing a bulletproof vest. My client was not armed. He didn't have zip ties. My client fought or was in the military, served honorably, no criminal background whatsoever. And he, like a lot of other disenfranchised people in our country, felt very, very, very solidly in sync with President Trump. He felt like his voice was, for the first time, being heard. And what ended up happening over the course of the lead up to the election, over the course of the period from the election to January 6th, it was a driving force by a man he hung his hat on, he hitched his wagon to. He loved Trump, every word. He listened to him.
Trump's in trouble. Have a good weekend.